I'm Bob Sanderson, as they mentioned. I am Mayor of the Municipality of Port Hope, and I'm a councillor on the County Council for Northumberland. And I don't know how many people have been out there, but I would like to remind you that the sun rises in the east, and we are east. So it's a good start, I think. A little bit of background. Northumberland County is a first-tier community, and we have 7 communities, of which Port Hope is one of them. So we'll try to get that there. It's the first community east of the GTHA. And as a member of many small communities and a first tier, we have many challenges, which I think are similar to people would have in the room. The one we'd like to talk to today is regard to transit. 8 years ago, when we talked to Metrolinx, and we did this on a collaborative basis with all the mayors and other secondary post-education principals, we recognized that Metrolinx wasn't looking east at all, and in their strategic plan it wasn't there. We also know that we have challenges, in the transit area throughout. So if we looked at our overview, of Northumberland, we have, a large amount of rural communities. We have 2 major population centers, Port Hope and Coburg. So those 2 areas have internal transit. So we have a bus system. By the same token, when you look at the entire county, we recognize that if we are going to meet the challenges, educational, growth, housing, employment, we can't do it with the current structure we have. So one of the priorities that the county has undertaken is to put transit as a priority and create some linkage. And we need to link ourselves to the GTH area. And to do that, we've entered into some agreements with hop-in technology, which you'll hear from shortly. And our goal is to try to make sure that anybody within Northumberland can work and go to services or to shop anywhere within Northumberland. And currently that's not possible. The other part of that is that Northumberland then needs to be able to connect to the GTHA. We're also, and I'd like to mention that we're on the corridor between Montreal and Toronto. COVID caused an interruption of VIA service as well. And one of the things that we're very actively trying to convince VIA to do now is to reintroduce what is called Train 651, and that's a commuter train. And all the mayors from Kingston on through, so far we've not been successful to have that service reinstituted. So what we are doing now is a pilot project, right? And I'm going to like to introduce Dan Borowick. I chair the committee, the standing committee for economic development, tourism, and land planning. Dan is the director of that. And I think what I'd like him to do is to come up and explain why we're taking the next step to try to link our transport, both internally, but then to allow it to have a connectivity to the GTH area. So Dan, if you won't mind, just come up.
That's the slideshow. I see. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Maybe I can just advance the slides here to give you maybe just a bit of representation for Northumberland County. As you can see on the screen, Northumberland itself occupies almost 2,000 square kilometers. It has a population of approximately 90,000 people, and connecting those communities poses somewhat of a challenge. One of the reasons we engaged in this project is that it is just not Northumberland, but almost all of Eastern Ontario considers transportation challenges as an infrastructure challenge. And so to that end, what we've tried to do is determine a way by which we could maybe overcome that challenge without, by the same token, investing a great deal of money in capital infrastructure. And so that's where collaboration and partnership play a vital role in this. That's sort of an indication, just gives you some sort of background of sort of the mobility issues that currently permeate the community. And the area I'd really like to get to is how we got to where we are. This was a bit of a beta test. There is an organization in Eastern Ontario known as the Eastern Ontario Leadership Council, and together with the Ministry of Labour and Skills Development and a local manufacturing association, a pilot fund was put in place to try and determine how to achieve the following objectives, which was basically how to help get workers to and from work, because as you're probably all aware, and the need for workforce and workforce mobility is a key challenge in all of our areas. The Northumberland Manufacturers Association, for instance, on a regular basis has buses running that bring workers into our various manufacturing plants. But by the same token, we could also offer that type of employment opportunity to local residents, but transportation became one of the key issues. So to overcome that, we piloted a program with the Manufacturers Association to get them to and from work, also to support the late night shifts for areas such as manufacturing or medical care and or tourism. And beyond that, by having some sort of transportation mechanism in place, it allows a way to becomes part of a recruitment strategy to attract workers. What brought this all together in this beta test format was the utilization of hop-in technologies, and I'll introduce Raoul Jean shortly. I just wanted to go to the next slide to give you an indication of what happened after the beta test. It's interesting that once we completed the beta test, the Manufacturers Association was not exceedingly willing to invest a great deal of money in marketing the program. I mean, some people were familiar with it, but part and parcel of where we think the success of this program will be, and early numbers seem to indicate that, is some significant marketing in the recognition of community that this type of infrastructure exists. To that end, and Mayor Sanderson mentioned this, GO extension or GO service extension into Eastern Ontario is a priority for many of the communities along Lake Ontario. And to that end, Metrolinx came forward with an exploratory fund. Northumberland County also put money in the process. So collectively, there's about $300,000 invested in a program that will help maybe support this type of logistics and infrastructure. To that end, as part of our initial work, we conducted survey work with about 1,100 responses over about a 3-week period that it was there to help demonstrate passenger demand, what type of intermunicipal transit services would be most required, what the best commuting times were, and also in putting together this particular survey information, we looked at the opportunities associated with connecting the communities of Port Hope and Cobourg to Oshawa GO. So all of this took place in about a 90-day span, at which point in time we launched this service beginning in September of 2022. We have a 12-month operational period to try and determine whether this is sustainable after a 12-month period. The Commuter Connect logo that you see on there is part and parcel of the marketing activity that's associated with this. The key element in this is what Hop-In Technologies brings to this effort. As a county-wide organization, our intent was not to buy buses or to utilize or to try and make significant capital investment, but rather work collaboratively in numerous partnerships to bring those resources to the table. So at this point in time, maybe I could introduce Raoul to talk about what Hop-In Technology actually does. To your slide. Big green one.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Your Worship and Dan. During the pandemic, Hop-In Technologies noticed that there were shuttle providers across Canada and the US that were being underutilized. And we also noticed that there were companies who wanted to control how their employees were getting to and from work because of the concerns of the pandemic. So what we did was we created an enterprise SaaS platform that used that undercapacity shuttle provider and lined him up with an organization that wanted to use the shuttle space. When NMA ride started, we had a mission internally to provide the local manufacturing organizations an efficient and cost-effective solution to solve the recruitment and retention issues. The data collected from the NMA riders, along with surveys and conversations with local stakeholders, were used to design the routes that are being operated in Northumberland County today. Hop-in Technologies, oops, 1 second here. Oh, sorry. All right, I apologize about the slideshow, but Hop-in Technologies logistics solution is not just for municipal and regional governments. When we started, like I said, we were aligning undercapacity shuttle providers with organizations that required the space. So, you know, we work with Maple Lodge Farms. During the pandemic, there was a general trend of people cooking at home more, and being one of Ontario's largest poultry producers. We partnered with them to make sure their staff were able to come to and from work. Through the information they provided us, we were able to see a turnover rate 12% lower than the national averages for the riders that use our shuttles, and we've had an 825% increase since we started the program with them. Honda, which is located in Alliston, was able to expand their hiring reach by hundreds of kilometers and provide work opportunities to those in traditional low-income housing areas and communities that normally wouldn't have the opportunity to work for Honda. What I'm most proud about, though, is the Northumberland Commuter Connect project. As of October 13th, I'm very proud to say that we have 348 people registered on our portal and have completed over 120 rides, and those numbers are increasing every single week. When we first embarked on this transit journey with Northumberland County, a trip between most of the different towns in the county was impossible if you didn't have a car. In the last year, Northumberland County has seen significant progress in making mobility accessible to not just those who live in major cities, but to people who live in rural Ontario also.
Thank you. So I'm just going to conclude with a couple of remarks, and thank you both for your participation. This is a trend, I think, that small communities and more rural areas need to start to address. We need to take responsibility for our own growth, how it occurs. I was very happy to work with Loyalist College. So another thing that's going to be of benefit to students, we're going to have a campus in Port Hope. So when we start to look at the requirements of different levels and ages, and some of the economic requirements, they're not all Bay Street, right? There's the local requirements, and then there's the requirements, and it's a pun, but it's a two-way street. There are employment opportunities for people in the Oshawa and the GTA area to come out our way. We were listening to the film opportunities. We see those coming our way as well. But I really don't see anything happening without collaboration, an efficiency between the 7 communities that comprise Northumberland County. And the foundation requirement is that people need to move without driving cars, right? And that's one of the reasons we're really pushing VIA very hard as well. We probably have 150 people who are driving the 401 to come into Toronto now. And that's unacceptable. So, the bottom line from our perspective is over the last few years, we've put that as a strategic priority with the county. All the municipalities, which every mayor participates on the county council, is extremely supportive and understanding that, it's not a territorial thing. Somebody can live in Port Hope, somebody can live in Cobourg, but they need to work somewhere. The other thing we've seen is a very large influx, of people moving out of the GTA area and coming, to Northumberland County. And there's lots of reasons for that. But we're not at this point in time meeting the needs of the rural community. And some of those are just even for medical services, et cetera. So this pilot project and some of the data we're gathering, it's again, very nice to say, well, we'd want something, but we'd really try to take it and show that it's economically feasible. And that's what I think this project is starting to do. It's difficult to communicate to residents, so it is taking some time for people to understand how the system works, how to use it, and what the benefit is. So we're here today, and I appreciate the attention. Come east if you have something to offer us, or we can help you in any way in your communities, we'd like to do so. But it's an open forum. We appreciate the ability to be here, and thank you very much for your attention. Thanks.